Ladies and gentlemen, how y'all doing? It's Moss Proud back. My partner in crime is not here yet. Hopefully he'll pull up later on soon. I told y'all go see my face again today when we did the episode this morning. We had a very interesting slate of games for round one of the WNBA playoffs. Of course, all the game ones happened today. Starting off in the earliest game came on at 1 o'clock. We had the Valkyrie and the Lynx, right? During the game, I'm looking at the game early, right? And I'm taking notes on this game. I'll take my notes. I'm looking at this game. It's a 29-point win for the Lynx, 101-72. First of all, let's start that off. The Valkyrie set the tone very early. I remember if y'all tuned in the last episode, me and Sports Haven, we talked a lot about how scrappy this team was, how aggressive they were, how they make you earn every inch, every shot. Oh, got my little pen here looking professional. Every inch, every shot, they make you go get everything, right? And then here they come out. They do the same thing. They set the tone. First thing I write down was they tried to get Nafisa Collier going early, right? She got the first 3 shots of the game off the tip-off, right? You get the first 3 shots. They forced like 2 misses. They were making them earn every inch. They go up by like 7 points, I think, or 10 points. And after that, it was all Minnesota. So Natisha Hydeman comes in and she brought a certain level of aggression. I was texting Sports Haven. I was like, Valkyrie setting the tone here. Golden State setting the tone. And he's like, yes, they're setting the tone. And then they respond. The Liberty responded with the exact aggression. Natisha Hydeman came in and responded very well with added aggression, right? With added intensity, right? 3-level defense. I kept hearing during the broadcast. All I kept hearing was they have 3-level defense. They're getting in these gaps. They're pressuring the ball and they're also protecting the basket. Jeff Shepard did a good job protecting the basket. DJ Carrington came in and gave you some good minutes. We all know what FISA can do. Courtney Williams was able to pressure the ball very well. And again, Natisha Hydeman came in and brought a very, very intense level of competition throughout the game. So during my notes is at the top right corner. At the top right corner of my notes. As soon as they went up by 7, the Valkyrie did, or 7 or 10, I forgot exactly what it was. I put an asterisk in the top corner of my paper and I said, "Watch for the run," right? And then after the game, I looked for the last 3 quarters of the game. I think the Lynx outscored the Liberty by like 40 points in the last 3 quarters of the game, right? And to get back to the beginning of the game, I'm kind of going back and forth, right? Because I'm trying to map it all out. There were like 3 uncontested shots by the Liberty Lynx. I'm sorry. 3 uncontested shot by the Lynx. And it was a timeout, right? After that timeout, they pretty much locked in. Veronica Burton opened up with a plethora of threes. She struggled throughout the game. They had a lot of 3-point volume. In the beginning of the game for the Lynx, and it flipped on its head. And it's crazy because another thing we talked about in the last episode was what were the exact words he said? Experience versus youth. That's the exact words he said. And that showed up in 2 games today. We'll get to that later. Experience versus youth showed up in this game. I wrote, it got to a point midway through the second quarter or third quarter. I wrote on my paper, I said they have no answer. They have no answer at all for they have no answer for the Lynx. It was bad. It was terrible. They had no answer. And that continued throughout the game. Every time they hit a shot, they'll not score for another 30 to 40 seconds. And then Minnesota then ran off 8 points in that span. It's this thing. They have no answer. So Kelly McBride had a good game. She kind of kicked it off. As I said, Natisha Hyman had a good game. They had 16 turnovers forced, 44 paint points. They went over 100. So they had 25 assists, which they led the league in assists as a team, and they shot 42% from 3, pretty much, right? Plus, with having a 10 rebound advantage. These are all the notes I'm taking out. All the stats I'm looking at. I put a dash, a hyphen, and I put hands. Because it was hands everywhere, right? And it kind of got them in trouble early, the Lynx, because it was couple fouls. It turned into free throws, but excuse me, they kind of tightened the ship, and still was hands, which explains all these turnovers for us. 16 turnovers for us, right? Hands. I saw hands every time somebody touched the ball. It was a pair of hands, right? And that reminds me of another team that won a championship very recently. Can y'all guess the name of that team? Yeah. So they matched their aggression, and I wrote another thing in my notes is they matched their aggression, which I said already, right? And I put an asterisk. Natisha Hyman, she was diving on loose balls, getting steals. She played aggressive. She was in people's pockets. She did everything she could to up the ante. And Nafisa Collier responded with her MVP level play. And Caleb McBride responded with hitting big shots. And they were getting fast break opportunities. I kept seeing layups, and then the game flipped on its head as y'all know. That's how you go from. That's how you allow 101 points in playoffs. However, give the Valkyrie credit. They tried to. This is a championship level team, as we've seen the Lynx go to the finals last year, and this is a team in their first playoff game as a franchise. Right? They just existed. Right? They're younger than me. Right? Younger than my nephew. Younger than my dog. Anyways, they put in a great effort in their first playoff appearance. They did the most they could. We don't give out participation trophies, but man, give them girls credit. They fought hard. You can see the aggression that they play with that got them to the playoffs. It's just sometimes when you match that and you have the more talent, there's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So give this team credit, man. Minnesota has been dominated throughout the entire season. The Lynx, excuse me, the Valkyrie just ran into an immovable force, right? That's my take on it. Second game, this is what I'm happy about. Hey, y'all, first of all, I had a great weekend. People, Georgia won. I'm a Georgia fan. Seattle won earlier. I'm a Seahawks fan. And then Atlanta won later on. I'm a Dream fan. I've had a wonderful weekend. Yeah. So the first thing I wrote down on my paper here, of course, I wrote the score again. Well, I didn't write score again. I wrote that last. I'm tripping. Excuse me, people. The first thing I wrote down is Kelsey Mitchell equals speed. Kelsey Mitchell was just fume. She had 9 points at that moment when I wrote that down. But this was a tough defensive game. I've seen a lot of opportunities limited by the defense that was played in this game, right? And I heard Agumake and Duncan, and the girls, they were on the broadcast, they were saying, I thought this was going to be a very offensive heavy game. And no, everybody hunkered down, including the Fever. And Aaliyah Boston was very limited in this game, although she did have contributions, as far as on the board. She did have playmaking opportunities that she exploited. But they hunkered down. And Alicia Gray was very good in this game. Ryan Howard, they both had 20 points. Nas Hillman had 18 off the 18 to add in. We got a lot of opportunities through multiple players. So I think we were up by 7 at halftime. And Sports Haven texted me, he was like, this is going to be a good game. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a great game. This is a very intense game. And I'm watching it, and as I'm paying attention, I'm like, wow. So, like, we kept the game at arm's length, if that makes sense, right? We'll go up by 7. They'll cut it to 1. We'll go up. We'll take it back to 7. They'll cut it to 5. We'll take it to 8, then 10 to 13. They'll cut it back to 10. And we kind of kept it at arm's length, and we controlled the second half. I kind of took notes on the play-by-play because that's what I do. Like after the notes I took watching the game live, I go look through the stats and match my notes up with the stats and the play-by-play to see if I saw my eyes didn't deceive me in such a way, right? And it was like a Breonna Jones layup, and then Alicia Gray hit a few threes, and then we controlled the game from there, right? We went up by 8, I believe, and Nas Hillman definitely helped us maintain that lead, right? She hit a lot of big shots. We had a big 3 late in that game. And one thing I've noticed is that the injuries kind of showed up for the Fever, right? They had lack of depth, right? We didn't have too much depth on either side. It was defensive. It was a defensive game. Uh, it's crazy because 80-68 was a defensive game, but you can see it. Like we created a lot of turnovers. Again, Ryan Howard was big in this game. I think she was like 4 for 10 from three. She had some big shots. We had some great 3-point shooting. Aaliyah Boston was held to 8 points, although she gave you 12 boards, right? Kelsey Mitchell had 27. She was excellent in this game. Again, Kelsey Mitchell equals speed. That's the first thing I wrote down. She was just zooming with the ball, right? She was coming off so many screens and pop, 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 layup, pop, 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 she three, pop, 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 mid range, right? And what I like is one thing I noticed, and I wrote this down in my notes as I'm looking at them. Atlanta closed out the second and the fourth quarter very strong for me. I like how we closed out the halftime. We had some big shots. We had some big stops. And then we did the same thing pretty much in the fourth quarter. Again, Nas Hillman helped us maintain that lead. And we had, again, strong contributions and clutch scoring was the big story for me in this game. We also limited second chance opportunities. We was able to crash the glass. And what hurt the Fever in this game is they couldn't kick the door in. They kept cutting the lead. They kept coming closer, and they couldn't kick the door in. Right? They couldn't kick the door in, and that hurt them in such a way to where they lose game one. Now they have to. Now they're down. They're down on one. They have to go around. They have to go down, and then try to come back. Right? It hurt them in such a way where they couldn't kick the door in. And again, like I said, the injuries popped up. Of course, the biggest star, Caitlin Clark's not there. Sophie Cunningham's not there. They just couldn't take control in that second half. They couldn't kick the door, and we maintained control throughout the second half. Us as in the Atlanta Dream. Again, we had that 7-point lead. We kind of maintained it throughout the rest of the game, and I'm very glad at what we did. I think coaching put us in a very great position. We had great defense. All NBA level ball pressure for these girls. Again, Kelsey Mitchell had a great game. All credit to her. We had 18 second chance points. And another thing that, before I forget, I read over it. I skipped over it. The free throw percentage disparity was huge. They shot poorly from the free throw. We shot like 92% from the free throw. And again, we had 18 second chance points. That's huge in a game where you lose by 12, right? What that means, they force, again, we talk about greedy defense, like this defensive game. So you're forcing these shots to be missed. And then we're getting the rebound and putting it back and still getting points off of it, right? So that's huge, right? On to this last game, our overtime game. This is one of the reasons why I started off probably 10 minutes later than I wanted to. Because we had a late game and I was busy taking notes on the game. I was, 7-point win for the Liberty. This is the other game where youth lost to experience, right? So a few things I saw, I wrote down a couple notes. Natasha Cloud, I wrote intensity, and then I wrote an arrow to Natasha Cloud. Nat Cloud, she put such a intense feeling on the game. I'm seeing her get and one. She's screaming. She's in people's faces. She's clapping. And it was a tough defensive start. One thing I did notice, Alyssa Thomas faced very soft coverage throughout this game. I wrote it down. Her first bucket didn't come through until it was 6 minutes left in the second quarter, right? So they played off of her. As we know, her skill is she's not a great shooter, so you can play that soft coverage. She can get to the basket and kick out. That's how her assist comes. She didn't have a crazy scoring game in total herself. It was a more of a all around game that you usually have, near triple double again. This was a gritty game. As we know, we went to overtime, 65-65, going to overtime, and then they outscored them like 11-4 to end the game, right? And we've seen that happen in certain games. Like, if you're a team and you're less experienced and you're in a close battle with a more experienced team, a championship level team, reigning champions, you want to kill the game in regulation. You don't want to go to overtime. Some games, as we seen this one, they went into overtime and they ran out of juice. Excuse me. So I'm looking at halftime. 14 for Sabrina Ionescu, 13 for Cloud, 11 for Stu. Right, Nat Cloud finished with 23. Brianna Stewart, she had 18, but she had that nasty injury. She injured her knee on the and one. She tried to hit the free throw. She had to leave the game with 1 minute left. That's no good. Hopefully she's good. Kalia Cooper had 15 for the Mercury. Dewana Bonner, she poured in 12. As we know, Alyssa had 14, 9, and 8. And this was kind of this kind of game where the Sun ran out of gas. They simply ran out of gas. It was tight. It was a back and forth. And another thing I take Sports Haven, I said, this game is intense. This is a very intense game. And as we can see, as it went to overtime, right, 65-65 in regulation. Both teams kept making pushes. Right, I come here, boom, they match them. Then they push a little bit forward, they matched them. It was a tight knit game. As I said, they went to overtime. And then in overtime, as I said, Nat Cloud again set the tempo. She opened up OT with a 3, and then they went on an 8-0 run, and then they kind of closed the book. And then Leone Fibik hit a clutch 3 to seal the win. Again, they had clutch performances under pressure because what Sports Haven said last week: youth versus experience. They played well. They had a mental toughness that the Fever did not have in certain situations that I referred to. They had a mental toughness to kick the door down, right? And the crazy thing, I was looking, I'm like, my eyes got big. I looked at the box score. I said 20 turnovers, and y'all won. Yeah, my eyes got big. They had 20 turnovers. They struggled. It was a tough game, and they still were able to. They were still able to come up clutch in big moments, right? And again, Nat Cloud, as I'm gonna say her name again, she set such a tone in this game, not only leading but the intent. She was very intense. She was locked in. She was here, right? She was, and it was big. It was big for them. Stewie was big in the clutch. It was man. This was a great game to see them close out. Kind of remind me of one of the most painful losses I've saw. It was when the Bucks beat the Nets in that game 7, right? The Bucks had a way better roster overall. So many injuries plagued the Nets, and they went into overtime and they ran out of gas. Right, clutch plays by Chris Middleton and other people. As it was here, Stewie, Nat Cloud, Ionescu played her butt off. She had a good game. Of course, we want to. Of course, not we. The Liberty, wants to close out a game in 2 games. They want to sweep them, right? 2-game sweep. What I've seen from the Mercury is they were very resilient, right? They clawed back in the fourth. They forced OT. They tried to claw back in OT, but sometimes championship teams show why they're championship teams, right? They didn't have enough big plays or stops. As simple as that. It wasn't enough. They didn't have great shooting efficiency in this game. They were very inefficient. This was a very tough, gritty game. So I think what they're looking for, of course, the Liberty will want to clean up their game. They want to have a more dominant win. They had injuries. They had 18 different starting lineups throughout the season. I seen on the broadcast. They said that's no good. They want more. Of course, they want more contributors and improving 3-point shooting. They didn't have a very efficient game for 3 either. They want more contributors, as I said. Less turnovers. Of course, you don't want that many turnovers because they don't want to go to overtime again. And give them credit because they're on the road at a lower seed. They did their thing. They wanted. How do I want to phrase this? I think both teams could clean up something here or there. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I believe the 4-5 matchup is always going to be the closest matchup in any basketball series and any basketball playoff, right? So just credit to the Sun. I mean, the Mercury. My bad. wrong league, people. I think I've been saying Sun this whole time. I've been saying Sun. Oh man, I've been saying Sun this whole time. Excuse me. I apologize. Mercury. Um, I think they used a lot of screens to free up players too. Of course, you want to have good usage screen, good rolling too. Of course, you want to clean up certain things. I think the Mercury bounced back from this. Of course, they don't want to get swept. They have home court advantage. They're a higher seed. You don't want to get swept. But what's really the difference between the 4 and 5 seed? You know what I mean? Except for Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. The Aces game coming on. I want to see as y'all the matchup you heard me and Sports Haven talk last week. If y'all tuned in, uh, Dominic Malonga and Aja Wilson. I want to see how that works. The MVP's playing tonight. Sunday Night Football's coming on, so we're gonna have a recap on that tomorrow. And don't forget, people, we are sponsored by BetUs. There's a promo code in the YouTube. They have the link. If you use code Not Move Podcast, you get 125% on your first 3 deposits. Thank you, BetUs. I am Mouse Prop, Not Move. My boy couldn't pull up. It's all right. I held it down for us, man. I held it down. Let's do another recap. We probably can do it. We're gonna have to do another recap tomorrow, anyways. I'm Moss Pride Not Move Podcast. Try to move us all you want to, because we're not moved. Lock in and log out. And remember one thing: if you don't take one thing from this segment that I've said today, if you don't take anything, right, we're not moved, fellas. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all, Not Move family. I'm logging out.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.